Vilfredo Pareto. Who was Vilfredo Pareto? Well, he was an Italian economist around the turn of the 20th century. And he had a theory about wealth distribution in the country of Italy. And essentially his theory was that 80% of the wealth was controlled by 20% of the population. It was called the 80-20 rule. And as retailers, we have now adopted Pareto's 80-20 rule as one of our own axioms of retail, which essentially says for the typical retailer, 80% of their sales that they're doing is coming from only 20% of their inventory investment. 80% of the business a typical retailer does comes from only 20% of their investment in inventory. And that's the hot styles, that's the hot item, that's the best sizes, that's the best colors, and that's what's producing all the turnover. But that's also, for most retailers, not the problem. Because if you agree that that's true for many retailers, then the reverse of that is that for most retailers, 80% of their inventory is only producing 20% of their sales. And that's the problem with most retail today for independents. How does a retailer get there? How does 80% of your inventory only producing 20% of your sales? Well, I call it assortment creep. Assortment creep says that that is the slow, steady, almost imperceptible increase in styles, in items, and in inventory in a store that adds to inventory levels, adds to the amount of investment that they have in stock, but doesn't appreciably add to sales. And that is what drains most cash from a retail business. The other thing that I think every retailer should understand, studies have shown that depending on the type of retail store you have, anywhere from 70 to 90% of your sales come from inventory that's only 10 weeks old or less. That's how perishable inventory is in a retail store. Now, for most retailers, that may only represent 20% of the stock, but 70 to 90% of their sales come from that. It's the power of new, because it's not how much you have as a retailer in terms of how much inventory, it's how much of the inventory that's new. The financial health of an independent retailer is in direct proportion to the percentage of their inventory that's just come in. New goods always trump old. And you know, I ask retailers this, what sells best? Freshly unpacked merchandise that just came in just prior to peak customer demand, or excess carryover inventory that they packed away from last season that they're bringing out again this season? It's always the new goods. The longer merchandise remains on the sales floor for a retailer, the more it costs the retailer money. Every day, every week, every month it sits there, it costs them not only real dollars, but opportunity cost. So it's not how much you have, it's how much new you have in inventory.